Back to school time is finally here, and you know what that means. You might think that means shopping for supplies and school buses. Well, yeah, of course that's true.
I mean, not shopping for school buses, but you get the idea. It's also time for the old folks that are hanging around to tell the stories about how rough it was way back then. You know, walking 6 miles to school through the snow, back and forth, uphill both ways.
I did. So in other words, it's time to make stuff up.
Okay, one exception. Jim Duffy, Secrets of the Eastern Shore, is with us this afternoon to share that one exception. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
And
Good to
this
be
is
here.
this is a young man named Charles?
Charles.
Charles.
The best way to tell the story of Charles Tinley, learning to read, is to start at the end. Because he became everything that kids, even today, want to become.
Okay.
He became a famous musician. He helped to invent an entire new genre of music, and he is a giant in the field of gospel music.
Okay.
He became a force for good in the world. He became a minister. He got one of the biggest congregations together in the whole country, and that congregation helped tens of thousands of people in need, unemployed people, people fighting against segregation. And the third thing, he became the equivalent in his day of a social media influencer. All right? His words were in all the newspapers, his sermons on the radio. He was famous all over the country and over in Europe too. So he became what kids today want to become.
Okay.
But he started in a very different place. He was born in slavery times in Berlin, Maryland. His father is super poor. His father's so poor that in order to help the family get money, he's got to rent his boy out at the age of 6 or so to other farms. And it's not like a part-time job or a 9-to-5 gig. He's got to go and he's got to live there for days at a time or weeks at a time. Then he moves on to another farm. Somewhere in this crazy situation, he meets another kid, a white kid, who they became friends. They started to play and hang out together. And one of the games they played was the alphabet game. And the white kid would show Charles Tinley, who was a black kid. No one wants black kids to read, but the white kid's kind of young and he doesn't know this. So he started showing him letters of the alphabet and teaching him how the sounds work. And they got to the point where he could do like 3-letter words, cat and dog. And then he had to move on to another farm, and the white kid disappeared. Charles Tinley really liked this game. He liked this game so much that he wanted to keep playing it by himself. But he had no books. He's a black kid. Nobody wants black kids to read. His solution was on the side of the road in litter. He would pick up discarded bits of newspaper and magazine, and he'd stuff them while he was working in his shirt pocket. And then late at night, because he didn't want anybody to know, he would light a piece of wood, a piece of pine knot, he called it in his memories, and he would light it. Maybe he's under the covers, I don't know. But he would try to match the sounds to the words, and maybe instead of dog, he started to understand dogma and dogmatic, and he kind of just figured things out. And he said, I went on like that, on my own, with no teacher, until I could mostly read the Bible. Isn't that incredible? So he's out one day, and he's driving cattle in the morning, and it's a Sunday, and he decides he should go to church. He's got to walk 5 miles to go to church after driving cattle. Super embarrassed about the way he looks and the clothes and the dirt and everything else. So he climbs into the church, and he goes all the way up into the gallery to kind of hide from the churches, mostly white folks dressed to the nines.
Right.
And the preacher says, I would like all of the children here today who know how to read to come up here and show off. And Charles Tinley's sitting there. He knows he's not talking about the black kid up in the gallery. But he's like, but I put all that work in. I do know how to read. And so he works up his courage, and he comes down, and years later he remembered the white people in the audience, a lot of them were like hissing, like, no, go back, this isn't for you. But the preacher seems to have been a nice guy, and he maybe he just smiled and said, sure, come on up. And he went up, and Charles Tinley got in line with all the white kids and got to the point where he had to open up the Bible, and the preacher pointed to a verse, and it was from the Gospel of John. It was, whosoever drinks the water I give him will never be thirsty again. And Charles Tinley looked back on that for the rest of his life as the moment when he developed an indomitable urge to become all that God put him in the world to be. So he didn't have to, he walked 5 miles to church. I don't know if it was snowing, but
Or uphill both ways, but it was 5 miles.
oh my God, there were no schools, there was no nothing. He figured it all out and then led this incredible life that really resembles what kids today want to lead.
Charles Tinley.
Charles Tinley.
That's incredible. What a great
How
story.
about that?
Wait, can I do one thing?
Yeah.
I have an ebook that tells the whole story of Charles Tinley's
Oh.
life. It's called I Will Overcome, the Soul-Stirring Life of Charles Tinley. And you can find it on the Secrets of the Eastern Shore website and on Amazon. It tells the whole story of how he accomplished all of those things after his incredible childhood.
What's the name of it again?
I Will Overcome, the Soul-Stirring Life of Charles Tinley.
Well, I guess you know where I'm going to be looking tonight.
Yep.
Jim, as
Jim
always.
Duffy, thank you so much.
You bet.
See you next week.